And we are on day 2 of our saw sharpening seminar, and this morning's focus has been orienting the file correctly, how to develop a good sight picture on the tooth you're jumping toward. And without even taking a stroke, we are practicing file placement, feeling it lock in. And the coaching aspect pays dividends because it helps the coach more than the coachee. And then periodically we switch off coaching as we spot for a correct sight picture, how the holding handle hand is adjusting to how the file wants to lock into the gullet. All right.
They feel weird.
And we're in a constant state of assessment with the coach, identifying what their coachee is doing right, what they're doing wrong.
Twisting it in there, I mean, you just move it from one gullet to the other. As you're going in, you're settling into the spot there.
With my thumb, I do that.
Okay.
That's what you do it?
Well, no, what I've stopped doing it actually. So
I've often found that the coaching aspect of all this really pays huge dividends in the training process. Go ahead. This is a pretty common occurrence with a bowed saw. This has a nice long even bow from heel, go ahead and check that out. From heel to toe, it's bowed. And the reason it's like that is because this saw was passed through a toothing machine at one point to get retoothed. And when the die comes down, it compresses the grain on the near side and expands it on the far side of the die. And that's why you see these so frequently like that. So it's a pretty straightforward approach. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna draw a line about 1/2 inch away from the gullets on both sides of the plate, using a straight edge and a Sharpie. Nice, neat line. And you're gonna make a precise line on the opposite side, because what we're doing is compressing the grain through the cross section. And that's how you straighten out this saw. And it's important that you hit both sides of the plate, otherwise the grain doesn't get compressed. If you just hit the convex side, the bow will return. So you get it to take by compressing the grain. So that's what we're doing here with this one. For starters, we're gonna take it here on the convex side, which is over here. This is the convex side of the plate. And we're gonna hit it on the more yielding surface, using the coarse, medium, fine approach, on the more yielding surface of a hard bench top, right? But it's not quite as hard as the anvil. That's where we're gonna take it next. So I'm just gonna start my taps. It's gonna serve to stiffen it and straighten it out. So after that first pass there, I still got a pretty good curve. So I'm gonna draw a secondary line here in the middle, and I'm gonna go middle to middle on this asymmetrical D8 plate, which is what this is. This is an old distant D8. Right, so now I'm gonna match this middle line so I can hit it through the cross section. Draw my connecting dots first. All right, so now that I've got my lines drawn, I'm going to hit this on the middle line on the convex side. For starters. Knocking it mostly straight on the more yielding surface of the bench top. And now that we've straightened out the kink on the bench top, we take it to the anvil to get the cross section of the grain to compress. And when that happens, it stretches the metal, straightens it out, and it gets the correction, getting rid of the kink to stick. All right, when you compress, when you move the metal like that internal to the cross section. So we're just gonna hit this at about that degree of intensity. And we're going to do both sides. So now I'm going to hit the other side where I've drawn the line to identify the cross section. You might notice that I've hung the teeth over the anvil a little bit, and that's so that the set in the teeth doesn't lift the plate. It's important that I have the plate firmly bedded onto the anvil, and you can see how I'm pressing with my fingers roughly on line that keeps it flat. This side is slightly concave, right? No longer straight, but that's okay. That's deliberate. We want it to be slightly concave because now when we hit it through the cross section, it'll straighten everything out and should result in a stiffer plate. So now we've taken it to the anvil and we're hitting that center line, which I think is going to serve to stiffen this saw plate and keep it straight. We covered jointing yesterday, but I want to give it one more demonstration. You're going to use a long file, mill file, 10, 12 inches long, okay, and a handle. As we covered yesterday, you can use one of these cool little doodads, but they're really not that necessary. You can do like what Mike introduced and actually set a file inside of a block of wood, and that'll work too. But the bottom line is you're going to rake the tips of the teeth off and create flats using about 2 or 3 strokes. I'll do a couple more just so the flats are really apparent, because the flats serve as a visual cue during the sharpening process. And once you've sharpened the flats off, then for the most part, then you're just hunting down what remains of the flats and sharpening those off. What you're not going to do is hit the teeth that already have the flats sharpened off. All right, so that's the jointing process. How to hold a file, and every time you jump to a new position, you're relaxing the tack in your hand, right? So here's what a sharpening stroke, or rather a brush stroke looks like. It's really light. You can put the wrist of your file on your forefinger. Do you see how I'm kind of brushing and lifting? I'm not bearing down at all. I can do this all day long. But if I try to muscle it, now I'm going to cut my finger open, right? So you don't want to muscle it. You should have a little file and just stroke and lift like that, real light. It's a sharp file, the teeth will do the cutting. So your action's going to look like this. I'm going to come over here to my first tooth. I'm going to press down with my thumb like you've been practicing, and I'm going to give a light little brush stroke. And now, I'm going to get up close, you should see brushed metal from the gullet up to the tip. Okay. We want to raise brushed metal symmetrically from the gullet to the tip of a tooth that has already been shaped correctly, okay? And you may have noticed when I took that little brush stroke and lifted, I paused and I assessed what it was I did. Did you see that? Okay? So that's what we're after, is an even reveal of metal. And again, it's a light. You may have noticed that I did not sharpen through the thickness of the plate, okay? All I was doing, making sure I'm on the right track because I'm developing muscle memory while I do this. So I'm gonna take another brush stroke, maybe 2, and I'm pausing, and you may see here, now I've carved a little bit more away from the tip of the tooth than I did the base of the tooth, right? So on my last stroke, I wound up carving more away from the tip of the tooth, and that's because I wound up rolling my wrist. This is why we only take brush strokes initially, because I'm going to correct it now by readjusting the tack in my hand and getting that tooth on track. Now you'll see a far more even reveal of metal, and I'm getting close to sharpening through the thickness of the tooth by now. Okay? Now, I'm going to finish this. I'm not even going to finish it up because by now I've taken about, what, 5, maybe 6 brush strokes. I'm already through the thickness of the tooth. The takeaway is you can actually sharpen an entire tooth line with brush strokes only. We'll get into sharpening strokes later. But right now we're going to master the brush stroke. And to recap what just happened, that second to last brush stroke, I wound up doing this, where I carved away more of the tip of the tooth. Can you zoom in on that and get a good visual on this graphic? Yeah? All right. So I went back and I corrected it with another brush stroke, and I got myself back on line here. So now I'm going to do about 3 teeth using brush strokes only. All I'm going to do is take 1, maybe 2 brush strokes per tooth, and then we'll file on by and see what that looks like, okay? My goal is to hit that middle graphic of an even reveal from gullet to tip. So here we go. Brush stroke, I pause and I assess. Do you see how I'm keeping my everything in the neighborhood of that tooth? I'm not doing this number and then, oh golly gee, now I've lost all my muscle memory, right? So I'm gonna take that brush stroke and make sure I have that nice even reveal, and I'm satisfied. So now I'm gonna move here to the next one. I'm gonna find my cross section, take that brush stroke, that looks good. I'm gonna take 1 more. That looks good too, but here's the key. It's critical that you pause and assess what you just did. All right, here's my 3rd tooth. That's a nice even reveal. I've got my muscle memory built up, and when we get to it later, that's when you can take a more assertive sharpening stroke. And note that I've popped my head over the top to see what I did to the flat. And I've carved away a little bit more than half of that flat. Okay, why don't we get a close-up here of these teeth. All right, these guys are getting all cocky and sure of themselves now. They've just mastered the art of brush stroking, and they are jointing their saws because do it one more time because you're such a sexy piece. Look at that. All right, looking good, Mike. All right. Once more feeling there, Tom. Get more of that file on there. Make sure you pick it up at the end. There you go. All right, looking good. We are all successfully jointed now. All right, this time, now that you've really gotten comfortable making your brush stroke, we're not quite ready for a sharpening stroke yet. Like I mentioned earlier, you can sharpen an entire tooth line with nothing but brush strokes. So that's the stage we're at now. I want to see you take multiple brush strokes, and I want you to see what you're doing to the flat. So here's what you're going to look like. You're going to turn your head around to be cool, first of all. All right. And you're going to take your brush stroke, you're going to pause, you're going to assess, and then look at what I'm doing here. I'm looking over the top of the tooth line, keeping my file here in the neighborhood to see what I did to that flat. I'm going to take another brush stroke. That flat's starting to shrink. I'm going to move on here to the next tooth. Do you see how I'm keeping everything close in the neighborhood? The only difference is I'm pulling over the top, and this is a little low for me. So just pop up on your toe like that. You see what I just did there with my heel? All right. Pop up, lift your file, look at what cool. I've got more of that flat reduced now. Move on to the next one. Assess. Now, if you booger it up, remember, you got to take corrective action to get that consistent gleam from the base of the gullet to the tip of the tooth. All right, that's what I'm looking for, is assessment not only of your gleam of revealed metal from gullet to tip, but what you've done to the flat. All right? And your goal is to remove about half of that flat.